So, I've been thinking a lot about the industry that you're in, but specifically you have been a senior leader at FanDuel for over a decade. But before that, you actually once toyed with the idea of launching your own fantasy football website before you took your first job. So, suffice to say, you love sports, you love what you do. And so as a fan and an operator, describe how fandom and sports betting have evolved and grown alongside each other. I was trying to think of an analogy. Like, is it like sourdough starter and like bread flour? Like, what's a better analogy? Yeah, that was the only one I could come up with.
First, very nice to be here. Thanks, everyone. I'm not a bread maker or baker. You wouldn't want me to be. I guess I would say maybe peanut butter and jelly. Like, they're both, they're each good on their own, but when you pair them together, 1 + 1 = 3. Look, I often say that I've been a sports betting executive for about 8 years, but I've been a sports fan for close to 50 years. And so that reverence and love and passion for sports is something I carry into work every day as a leader of FanDuel. And unsurprisingly, most of my colleagues are also immense sports fans. And so, that's how we approach what we do. And so, one thing, when you think about how does sports fandom and sports betting, what has the legalization of sports betting done to change things, you have to remember that people have bet on sports for as long as sports has existed. I mean, Roman Colosseum, Mesopotamia, you go back, as soon as somebody was running, somebody was betting on how long it was going to take them to get somewhere. But in the US, until 2018, it was relegated legally to betting in casinos in Nevada. And 2018 really changed the game, and as states began to legalize, one of the first decisions we made as a company was to partner with the sports leagues and their media partners and to work together, because it was very important to us that we wanted sports betting to exist and thrive inside the sports mainstream ecosystem, not outside of it. So rather than sort of fight the leagues on what regulation would look like, we waived conflict and let the leagues use our same lobbyists. And we went together to state capitals and we talked about the package of regulations that we thought would both deepen engagement in sports and would also ensure the integrity of sports long term. We're still in the early innings here. We've had some hiccups along the way, but we brought transparency. When we identify a player betting on our platform, we immediately identify all the other operators. We operate all the leagues. We cut it off. These things are published now. None of that existed on the illegal market before we legalized sports. And I think there are broader benefits too. Obviously, the leagues have monetized a lot of this. That money flows back to players. It flows back to teams through marketing partnerships and data partnerships. And I think there's, kind of a benefit that people don't often think about, which is people have talked about their bets on sports and what they think and their opinions forever around water coolers and in barbershops and in group text chats. And now those conversations with legalization, they're happening on pregame shows before sports. They're happening on mainstream podcasts and all the places that people gather to talk about the things that they're passionate about. And so I think you really have seen a nice integration.
And definitely the synergies there of both the peanut butter and the jelly in terms of the growth. Well, regulation, though, has also for you guys been a critical scaffolding for growing the company, but also for the industry. But as we know, regulation always needs to evolve with time. Currently, where do you see regulation as being behind?
Yeah, so there's two ways to look at that. First, again, the demand is there. The demand does not recognize state borders, right? But we only have about half the country. Really, it's oddly enough, it's half the number of states, and it equates to roughly 50% of the population in the U.S. has access to legal and regulated online sports betting. I think some of the obvious benefits of legalization regulation are pretty simple. But if you keep your money in FanDuel or DraftKings or Fanatics, any of our competitors, your money's safe. If you want to take it out, you get it out. You get it out immediately. You can trust that it'll be there. If you win a bet, even a really long shot bet, you bet $2 and the payoff is $1 million, you're going to get paid immediately. If you have a dispute with an operator, you have an arbiter to take that dispute to. You can take it to a regulator and you can get a fair hearing. There are regulations around advertising, when we can advertise, to whom we can advertise, what the content of the advertising must be, what it cannot be. We have know your customer regulations. We use the same service providers that banks use to verify that people are 21 years of age, that they are who they say they are. So all of these, none of that exists in the 25 states and the half of the country that doesn't have access to legal regulated sports betting. So the table stakes of regulation do so much to build trust in an activity that people are going to engage in one way or another. And so I think, again, we're still, we always use sports analogies. I don't know, we're in the top of the fourth inning in the development of this category. And so there's more to learn. We've continued to work with our league partners. There have been some integrity scandals, players who engaged in betting or friends of players. We've eliminated some bet types based on seeing that they were vulnerable to abuse, and we've worked with the leagues to continue to make progress there, and we'll keep doing that. But I think the bigger gap really is in the half of the country that doesn't have access to legal and regulated books, because what you see there are a number of companies who are kind of water skiing behind the halo of legalization, because some customers, they go and run a Google search and they want to make a bet on sports, and they get to these sites and they think, well, I've heard that sports betting is legal, and they don't even realize that they're on a site where they don't have any of that consumer protection.
Just really quickly on this last question on this topic, any type of economic sort of consequence of being behind here?
Yeah, I think two big things for states that haven't legalized. One, you're leaving your citizens unprotected. Two, you're leaving a lot of money on the table. So online sports betting in Virginia has generated over $350 million to the general fund and to responsible gaming support. FanDuel alone has paid over $5 billion in tax revenue to the states in which we operate. It's paying teacher salaries, it's supporting first responders, it's paying for the building of roads. There's a lot of good that comes from that revenue, again, all from activity that's taking place. Virginia right now is considering a bill for iGaming, which generates even more tax revenue than sports betting. We're looking at $2.7 billion over a 5-year period that would go into Virginia's general fund. And so that's in front of the House and the Senate now. And I think there's a lot that states can gain, and it can be a win-win partnership.
Let's talk lastly about the consumer. I think one of the most fascinating things that that you shared with me before today is that some of the guardrails that you put up on the platform actually really have an effective impact on the way that certain players spend their time and money. Can you share some of those really important stats?
Yeah, sure. I think my phone's on silent, so don't worry. But I would venture to say that there's not an app on your phone that is doing more to give you information about how much you're spending, to empower you with tools to regulate your spend, and to encourage you to use those tools than the FanDuel app and our competitors' apps as well. We do that because we want our customers to play for a long time and to play sustainably. And the kinds of things that our app has, if you think about a social media app, right, the algorithm is designed to keep you glued in, to not close out for as long as they can keep you there. If you're shopping online, most sites, if you peruse an item but you don't put it in the cart, you'll get a little pop-up or reminder saying, I saw you looking at that jacket. You sure you don't want it? And if you buy the jacket, they've got 3 more they want to prompt you to sell. We're also a business-to-consumer site, but what we're doing is, we are providing users, if you've been on our site for over a certain period amount of time, you'll get a pop-up saying, hey, you've been on for a while. Do you think you would like to take a break? We provide users the ability to limit their losses, limit the time they spend, limit the amount they deposit. We allow users to take timeouts for their own specified period of time where they can't come back. And if they try to come back, we don't let them until the timeout's over. You can exclude yourself completely. We've got a couple of really neat tools, one called My Spend, where we send users on a regular monthly basis a detailed snapshot of exactly how much money they deposited, how much they spent, how much they won, how much they lost, what they won and lost it on, and a comparison to how this month looks as against other months. Part of that is, this is entertainment spend. We all spend money on things that are entertaining for us, and if we're honest, probably a lot of times we have a little bit of cognitive dissonance about how much we're spending. My wife and I have a running argument about the Amazon packages on our front door, and this MySpend is just empowering users with information to break through that cognitive dissonance. We want you to be aware of what you're doing. And then the coolest tool we have is this, what we call real-time check-in, which is we use the data we have on you to know that if you're somebody who generally deposits $50 every other Friday into your account, and suddenly on a Thursday you deposit $250, it will flag that discrepancy from your baseline, and we'll send a pop-up to you to say, this is unusual activity, are you sure you want to do this? And those sort of escalate over time depending on the user's activity. And users use these tools. I mean, that's what's cool. We put them in front of them. We allow users to have choice and volition about what they want to do, but with the real-time check-in, 1 in 4 people who see that set a deposit limit. We've seen all kinds of instances of people looking at the MySpend data and regulating themselves sort of back to their norm. And for users that were on our site at least 10 days in a year, so somebody that didn't just kind of looky-loo once, but actually used the site, over 80% of them used one of our tools to regulate their play. We think that's a success story and it's fantastic, and those users tend to play longer. It's not good for business for people to bust out and spend more and not have a good experience. It's only if they're enjoying what they're doing that they're going to stick around.
I think it's a critical point. And last question here before we turn it over to my teammate. There's a lot of concern right now about young people in particular, maybe getting way in over their heads. What do you see?
Yeah, I think, look, we recognize that, and it's not an issue specific to sports betting, right? There are a lot of there's a lot of broader conversation on that topic. It's why we have the tool. You know, I go back to what I just said. All of the tools that we're using, there are, you know, I get frustrated when I hear there's, you know, a sadly too common sort of characterization of our industry that we're looking for gambling addicts and we're trying to get as much money out of them as we can. And that's our business model. And it's just, that's not who we are. And it's also illogical for the reasons I just said. We're publicly traded on the New York Stock Exchange. We're a $20 billion plus company. We have a long-term goal to have a sustainable business. You know, that said, we recognize that, you know, according to experts, that 1 to 2 to 3% of people who encounter our platform will have gambling addictions. Our responsibility is to identify that as soon as possible, get them off our platform forever, and provide them resources to help them with their problem. For the vast majority of people on our site, it's to use the kind of tools I talked about to help them enjoy it. You know, if you kind of bring this conversation full circle, most of our customers are sports fans. They have opinions on teams, they have opinions on players, they follow it, they watch the games. And they like to have a bet on the game so that it increases sort of their level of engagement and their level of connection with the game. We want them to be sports bettors for as long as they're sports fans.
Christian, thank you so much for sharing your perspectives and for sponsoring this evening.